The last time an alien vessel entered human space, it vanished without a trace. Most dismissed it as rumor, convenient human bravado, a scare tactic, a bluff. Until now. Captain Drain of the Threxian Vanguard had no time for caution. His orders were simple: probe the outer rim of the Terran expanse and test their defenses. His superiors believed humans were all bark and little bite. After all, Earth had only been a spacefaring civilization for a few centuries. In Threxian terms, that was nothing. A blink. And yet somehow, in those fleeting years, humanity had earned a reputation that made even ancient empires pause. They called them feral, unpredictable, dangerous. Drain was about to find out why. His warship, the Claw of Dominion, cut through the border of human-designated space like a dagger into uncharted flesh. A cold silence accompanied the moment. No alarms, no sirens, just the dead quiet of space and the steady beat of his heart. Then the screen blinked. Not a communication, not a warning, just a message in perfect Threxian dialect. Turn back. No source, no trace, just that. Drain leaned forward, clicking his mandible in curiosity. His first officer, Varric, looked nervous. "They're bluffing," Drain said flatly. "Push forward." The ship surged deeper into the Terran sector, and that's when they saw it. A floating graveyard. Thousands of ships, from dozens of species. Some ancient, some recent, all dead. Twisted metal and scorched hulls drifting like ghosts. There was no pattern, no battle formation, just devastation. Surgical, terrifying precision. Entire fleets gutted and left to float as a warning. Varric's voice trembled. This can't be real." "Oh, it's real," came a voice, deep, human, and calm, broadcasted across every system on their vessel. Panic spread across the command deck like a virus. Drawn bared his teeth. "Identify that signal." "I wouldn't bother," the voice continued. "You're already seen." From the darkness between the wreckage, they emerged. Human ships. No sleek curves or polished elegance like Threxian warcraft. These were brutal, angular monsters. Black armor, jagged hulls, and red warlights that pulsed like a heartbeat. They didn't shimmer into view. They were already there, waiting, cloaked in silence. Drain counted 7. No, 10. And then more. Dozens. The largest of them bore the words HS Revenant. It didn't just glide, it prowled, like a beast. Varric whispered, "Why didn't we detect them?" Drain's answer died in his throat. A transmission lit up the screen, this time with video. A human male, scarred, weathered, and dead-eyed, stared straight at them. "You've crossed into human space," he said. "You ignored the warning." Drain tried to respond, but the human cut him off. "We don't negotiate with trespassers. You don't get second chances out here." And just like that, the screen went black. No countdown, no theatrics. A single torpedo hit the Claw of Dominion mid-keel. It didn't explode. It tore the ship apart from the inside out with a low-frequency energy pulse. Systems failed. Lights died. Pressure dropped. Screams echoed in vacuum as the hull cracked like glass. Captain Drain's last sight was a human ship floating inches from his viewport, silent and still, like a wolf staring down prey that never stood a chance. They had learned. The galaxy would learn. Human space was not a border. It was a death sentence. The wreckage of the Claw of Dominion floated silently among the corpses of ships long dead. No one came to rescue the Threxians. No black box beacon transmitted their demise. In human space, you vanish. That's the rule. the only rule. Commander Roran Holt stood on the command bridge of the HS Revenant, staring at the dying flicker of the Threxian flagship's debris. He didn't blink, didn't smirk. This wasn't a celebration. It was duty, a brutal one, but necessary. He turned to his weapons officer, Navarro. "Any survivors?" Navarro shook his head. "One pod ejected. Auto-rescue disabled. Looks like they'll drift till they starve." Holt nodded. "Let them." There were no cheers, no high fives, just silence. Everyone aboard the Revenant knew the score. These weren't heroes. They were janitors of a galactic truth. Humanity had bled for its corner of space, and no one, no matter how ancient or mighty, would ever violate it again. He walked off the bridge, boots echoing down the metal hallway as he moved toward his quarters. Along the walls were plaques. Each one bore a name. Each name a captain, a crew, a vessel that had died during the Terran Annex Wars. Over 200 ships, billions of lives. The aliens had laughed at Earth when they first reached the stars, called them primitive, emotionally unstable, too young for interstellar politics. Then they tried to conquer them, colonize. "Uplift," they said. Humanity didn't respond with diplomacy. They responded with extinction-level fury. Holt sat down at his desk and pulled up a report from High Command. 2 more alien reconnaissance ships had been spotted near the Gliese boundary. Unmarked. Silent. He pinched the bridge of his nose. They never learn. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. "Commander Holt, you're requested in Central Strategy." "Level 4. He sighed and stood, slipping on his black officer's jacket. It still smelled faintly of ozone and iron, residue from the torpedo launch hours earlier. Every operation left a mark. As he walked the corridors, soldiers stepped aside with nods, not out of respect, but caution. Holt wasn't feared because of rank. He was feared because he was one of the few left from the early days, a survivor of the Gemini siege. A man who'd watched a city get glassed from orbit and lived to hunt the fleet responsible down to their last spawnling. In strategy, the lights were dim and the screens alive with movements across Terran space. A hologram floated in the center of the room. Ship positions, border sectors, and red flares where breaches had occurred. At the table stood General Alric Vaughn, a man built like a statue carved out of war. His face was old but sharp, silver hair cropped to the bone. When he saw Holt, he didn't waste time. "We found the Threxian beacon." Holt raised an eyebrow. "They brought one?" "Deep inside their hull, masked. It's already transmitting." Vaughn tapped the console. "We jammed it, but not before it pinged 4 other fleets across the rim. We've got incoming." "How many?" "Minimum 3 fleets, all Threxian. 1 Karun Syndicate vessel intercepted a fragment and passed it to the Zerelli." He paused. "It's spreading." Vaughn looked at him. "You think we're ready?" "We've always been ready," Holt replied. "The only question is how much of the galaxy we'll have to bury before they understand." The general grunted. "We're issuing the Iron Protocol." Holt nodded slowly. "Understood." Vaughn locked eyes with him. "And the Revenant?" "We'll lead the deadline. No survivors, no mercy, same as always." As Holt turned to leave, Vaughn called out, "One more thing. There's been contact from within." A civilian ship from the outskirts of the old Earth fringe picked up something, a signal. Human origin. Holt turned. "From where?" "Past the dead zone." He froze. The dead zone was forbidden territory, a sector of space where hundreds of ships, both alien and human, had vanished without trace during the early colonization period. No one dared enter it now. Survivors? We don't know. Could be a trap. But the signal, it's old. Pre-unification. From a ship registered as Odessa Prime. That hit Holt like a punch. The Odessa Prime had been one of the original colony ships, vanished over 150 years ago. No signals, no wreckage. Declared lost. "Send it to me," he said quietly. Hours later, in the privacy of his quarters, Holt stared at the signal on loop. It was grainy, cracked with time distortion, but unmistakably human. A face, young, male, wild-eyed, screamed into the camera. "If anyone hears this, they're not dead. They're evolving. The ship's systems are alive. Don't come for us. Don't—" Static, and then silence. Holt sat back, stunned. If that signal was real, then someone had crossed out of human space, into the dead zone, and was still alive, or worse, something was alive there now, with human DNA. He didn't know what was more terrifying, the fact that an ancient ghost ship might be screaming for help from the dark, or the possibility that it wasn't screaming for help at all. The galaxy was knocking on humanity's door, unaware that something inside had just stirred. Maybe humans weren't the only monsters anymore. The signal from the Odessa Prime haunted Holt. He watched it again and again, dissecting every frame, every scream, every stuttering flicker of light behind the speaker's eyes. There was something wrong in that voice, something broken, mutated. A human shell with something else buried underneath. The name Odessa Prime hadn't crossed military channels in over a century. That ship was part of the first expansion, a wave of colonists desperate to escape the chaos of pre-unification Earth. Most had vanished in the early days, eaten by the void or claimed by alien empires before humanity became the nightmare it was now. But if the Odessa had survived, or evolved, then the implications were staggering. He sat alone in the war room, the lights low, data screens hovering silently around him. There was no movement from the signal's source now, just silence. But the coordinates were clear, deep within the dead zone. The place every fleet avoided, even the brave ones. The fear wasn't superstition. Entire battle groups had gone in. None came out. Navarro entered without knocking. "Sir, High Command's authorizing the Iron Line. Full perimeter lockdown." "I expected that," Holt muttered. "But there's more. The civilian ship that caught the signal? It's gone. No trace. It was supposed to dock at Station 9. Never arrived." "Hijacked? Possibly. But there's no distress call, no jump trail, no debris. Just vanished." That changed everything. "Send a ghost squadron to sweep the fringe sectors," Holt ordered. "Use cloaked sensors only. I want eyes but no contact." "Yes, sir." Holt turned back to the signal. He could still see the face of the young man from the Odessa, wild, desperate, and somehow aware, as if he knew who might find this, or what might be listening. By morning, Holt was on the move. The Revenant docked at Black Spire, a hidden orbital station deep within the asteroid belt of the Titan graveyard. This wasn't a base on any map. It was where missions went when they weren't meant to be remembered. He met with Commander Vire, one of the few operatives who specialized in untraceable missions. She was sharp-featured, scarred across one cheek from plasma burn, and wore no rank insignia. Her team didn't wear uniforms. They wore silence. "We intercepted fragments of the Odessa's signal before it reached Terranet," she began, pulling up a hologram. "We isolated the pattern. It's not just a transmission, it's embedded code." "Code?" Holt asked. She nodded. "Data, schematics, something evolved. We ran partial decodes, our systems crashed. Whatever's in this signal, it's not compatible with current Terran tech. Or any tech." Holt's skin prickled. Are you saying it's alive? I'm saying it doesn't want to be found. Or, it does, but not by us. She paused, then slid a data module across the table. This is all we could extract before containment. Look at the waveform. Holt tapped it open, and the signal began to play again, but slower, distorted. Not just the man's voice. Behind it, under the static, was a low hum, a whisper. When filtered through the analyzer, it became words. No language known to the galaxy. But somehow it felt human. It repeated the same phrase. I am not what left. I am what became. Vire spoke quietly. Whatever's inside the Odessa Prime now, it's not crew. It's something else. Something that used to be human but isn't anymore. Holt stood, jaw clenched. I want that ship. Vire raised an eyebrow. Even if it's a trap. Especially if it is. If something's waiting inside human space to rise, I want to face it before the rest of the galaxy sees it. She nodded. Then you'll need the black cell. Quiet ship, no trail, no questions. I'll take it. I'll go in myself. A week later, the HS Ghostlight departed from the dark side of the Titan moon, running on null energy signatures. No lights, no emissions. Dead to the stars. A crew of 5, handpicked, silent, and fully expendable. Holt was among them. He didn't tell Navarro. Didn't notify Vaughn. He left the Revenant under a temporary command and vanished into the black like the ghosts they hunted. They jumped across the rim, bypassed every safe lane, every patrol. The dead zone greeted them like a tomb. There was no light, no traffic, just cold stars and broken laws of physics. The moment they entered, Holt felt it. The hum. It wasn't mechanical. It was alive. The ship's sensors began acting strange, mapping stars that didn't exist, detecting gravitational fields from empty space. One crewman, Delro, began to speak nonsense in his sleep, reciting words from the Odessa signal without ever hearing it. Sir, the pilot said nervously, we've got a fix on the coordinates. The Odessa Prime is still broadcasting. Very faint. Bring us in slow. No pulses, no scans. As they approached, the outline of the lost ship emerged from the void. It was huge, larger than its original specs. The hull had grown, expanded. Parts of it looked like metal. Other parts looked like bone. Lights flickered inside, but not like electricity. They pulsed, like veins under skin. Holt stared in horror. What the hell happened to them? Sir, should we dock? The pilot asked. Number, not yet. They launched a drone, hoping to get a clean view. The drone approached the hull, and then disintegrated. No flash, no weapon fire. It just vanished. Vire's voice buzzed in Holt's ear from back on Black Spire. I warned you. That ship isn't what left Earth. I have to board it, Holt said. You'll die. Maybe. But if we don't learn what's on that ship before the Threxians arrive, the entire galaxy might die too. He suited up. Not in a standard EVA suit, but a reinforced pressure frame with internal AI overrides, built for deep space derelict missions. It wouldn't stop whatever was on that ship, but it would give him a fighting chance. The boarding tether launched. It hissed quietly as it latched onto the hull of the Odessa Prime. The suit auto-locked him into the cable rail, and he began his slow approach. Inside his helmet, the hum got louder. It wasn't just a sound anymore. It was a voice. Welcome back. He froze. Who said that? No answer. The voice was in his mind. He reached the airlock. It opened without command. No pressure burst, no resistance. Inside, The walls were slick, like skin fused with steel. Lights pulsed along the corridor like heartbeats. The gravity was unstable. Holt floated, then dropped, then floated again. He moved through the corridors of the Odessa Prime, scanning every shadow. It was empty. No bodies, no signs of life. Just silence. Until he found it. The bridge, still intact, still running. A chair turned slowly as he entered. And in that chair was the man from the signal, still young, still wild-eyed, still very, very alive. But his skin was pale, stretched, his fingers longer than normal, his eyes pitch black. Holt raised his weapon. "Who are you?" The thing in the chair smiled. "I was Adam Ricks, Engineering Corps. I survived the initial collapse. We all did. Until the ship changed. It started learning, adapting. We weren't passengers anymore. We were cells." Holt kept the weapon aimed. "What are you now?" "I don't know," the thing whispered. "But I know what you are. You're too late." "To stop what?" Adam's head twitched. "To stop us from becoming more than human." Suddenly, alarms screamed on the ghost light. Navarro's voice crackled over comms, panicked, distorted. "Commander, you need to get out. They're here. Multiple ships, Threxian, closing in." Holt turned. Adam's smile widened, inhuman. "They followed you." And then the hull of the Odessa Prime began to pulse, like it was waking up. Not just a ship, a creature, a god born from steel, fear, and evolution. The hull of the Odessa Prime vibrated with a low, living rumble, like a creature stirring after a long sleep. Holt could feel it through his boots, in the air, in his bones. "Ghostlight, respond!" he barked into his comm. Only static answered. He turned to Adam. If that thing still was Adam. The man had risen from the chair, bones cracking, limbs twitching in unnatural angles. The human form was there, but like a suit being stretched by something wearing it from the inside. "They're here," Adam whispered. "The others. They followed your trail. And now the Odessa is hungry again." Adam's head cocked to the side. "They won't take it. They'll feed it." Before Holt could react, the entire ship lurched, not like a normal vessel maneuvering, but like something turning its head. Bulkheads groaned, corridors flexed, lights dimmed and returned in rhythmic pulses. From outside, the Threxian fleet had emerged in formation. 12 warships, angular and cruel. Their lead vessel, the Spear of Coral, initiated broadcast protocols, sending out sensor sweeps and encrypted demands. They weren't here for diplomacy. They wanted the ghost ship, technology, secrets. But what they found was far beyond technology. On the ghost light, Navarro and the crew were in chaos. "Where's the commander?" she shouted, slamming a fist into the control console. "He's inside the Odessa. We lost his signal." Suddenly, one of the Threxian warships launched a probe toward the derelict. It never reached. A tendril, no, a limb, shot out from the Odessa's hull. Not a mechanical arm, but something organic. Thick, black, veined with red light. It snagged the probe mid-flight and pulled it into the body of the ship. Then, silence. No explosion. No damage. Just consumption. Inside the Odessa, Holt moved through the corridors with urgency now, ignoring Adam's eerie laughter echoing behind him. He had to find a way out. Anyway. He passed former crew quarters, now nothing but nests of fused material and sinew-like cables. Some of them still held bodies, twisted, malformed, staring with vacant eyes that shimmered with residual awareness. These weren't corpses. They were hosts. The deeper Holt went, the more the ship revealed itself as something no longer mechanical. It had grown. It had evolved. It had fed. On its own crew, on alien explorers, on energy, memory, flesh, data. Whatever it could use, it absorbed. Not like a virus. More like a seed becoming a forest. He reached what had once been the shuttle bay. The docking systems were gone, replaced by a wall of pulsing muscle-like matter. But in the corner, something glimmered. An old escape pod. Cracked. Dusty. But still intact. As he moved toward it, Adam's voice echoed again. "You'll leave and warn them? You'll tell the galaxy?" Holt turned. Adam was crawling across the ceiling now, flesh fused with ship matter, eyes glowing red. "They'll come anyway. The hunger is calling. The Odessa wants them." Holt didn't reply. He dove into the pod, sealed the hatch, and began booting the launch systems. The interface flickered. Old tech. Sluggish, but alive. Behind him, Adam shrieked like a creature dragged through burning steel. A clawed hand slammed into the pod's window just as Holt punched the launch. The pod shot free, rocketing through the skin of the Odessa like a bullet through flesh. The walls flexed, tried to close around him, but too late. He was out. Just in time to see the Threxian fleet fire. 12 coordinated plasma blasts struck the Odessa Prime's hull, and nothing happened. No damage, no impact. Instead, the ship opened. The front end peeled like a flower, revealing an interior chamber that defied physics. A glowing sphere, black and red, spinning with impossible geometry. And from that sphere came the retaliation. A wave of sound, no heat, no light, just vibration. It hit the Threxian ships like a hurricane of madness. The spear of coral exploded instantly, not from external damage, but from internal implosion. Its core destabilized, the crew's bodies liquefied under gravitational pressure spikes. No survivors. The rest tried to flee. The Odessa extended its reach. Massive tendrils of semi-solid energy lashing through space. It didn't just destroy the ships, it absorbed them. Holt's escape pod tumbled from the force shock, sensors screaming, but he didn't look away. He watched as the fleet was unmade, not defeated, not wrecked, but consumed. Each ship was broken down molecule by molecule, pulled into the Odessa's body. Every bit of metal, flesh, data, soul, it all became part of the thing. Within minutes, the Threxian fleet was gone. And the Odessa Prime was bigger. The hull had grown again. Darker, meaner, hungrier. The escape pod's trajectory flung Holt toward the edge of the dead zone. The ghost light, limping and wounded, managed to catch the signal and tractored him aboard just before their fuel gave out. Navarro helped pull him from the pod. "What happened in there?" Holt looked at her, eyes hollow, face drained. "We woke something up." "You mean Adam?" He shook his head slowly. "Not Adam, not a crew, not even a ship." He turned to the viewport where the Odessa Prime now hovered silently among the wreckage it had created. That thing. It's not just alive. It's not just evolving. He paused. "It's learning, and it knows we're watching now." Navarro stared at the wreckage, face pale. "Should we call command?" Holt didn't answer right away, because he knew what Vaughn would do, what High Command would order. Burn the zone, erase the evidence, trigger the Iron Protocol. But something told him it was already too late for that. The Odessa had already begun transmitting again. This time, not to humans. but across the galaxy. Not a cry for help, not a warning, an invitation. The emergency briefing room inside Terran High Command was sealed tighter than a tomb. Thick steel walls, null frequency shielding, 0 uplinks. Inside, a dozen of the most powerful human military minds sat around a black, circular table with holoscreens flickering above. At the head sat General Alric Vaughn, shoulders square, jaw locked in rage barely hidden beneath control. The recording of the Odessa Prime's awakening played again, silent, grainy, but unmistakable. Ship after ship collapsing, dissolving, becoming part of something else. Across the table, Admiral Saren whispered, "It didn't just consume them. It copied them." "Worse," said Director Hallstrom of Cybernetics Division. "It understood them. The Odessa integrated Threxian tech within minutes. That kind of adaptive evolution isn't mechanical. It's biological AI at a scale we've never seen." "Biological AI," Vaughn repeated grimly. "A human ship born with a mind of its own." "No, sir," Hallstrom corrected, eyes hollow. "It became a mind. That wasn't just a ship waking up. That was a god learning it exists." Silence. Then Vaughn slammed his hand on the table. "Initiate protocol, Scorch. No more containment, no observation, no extraction missions. That ship dies. We launch everything." Murmurs rose. "That means nukes," Saren warned. "Planet burners, full detonation of the dead zone. We'll lose entire sectors. Fringe colonies, mining rings, dark trade stations, hundreds of thousands." Vaughn didn't blink. "It's a small price." Across the room, an advisor whispered, "And if it survives?" Vaughn's silence said enough. Back on the HS Ghostlight, Holt stood alone in the med bay, watching Navarro get her shoulder reattached by the autosurgeon. She winced, but didn't complain. No one did anymore. He stared into the small viewport, where the faint shimmer of the dead zone boundary loomed in the distance. "Have they responded yet?" she asked, voice quiet. "Number, but we intercepted a shadow beacon from Spire Station," Holt said. "They're assembling a Scorch armada. It's real. We're about to light up half the rim." Navarro nodded. "Think it'll work?" He didn't answer. Because deep down, he knew. Nothing the humans had, no missile, no bomb, no stellar flare, could kill what the Odessa Prime had become. That ship hadn't just absorbed alien tech. It had evolved human rage, the worst parts of them. And now it was awake, and spreading. On the Odessa, somewhere deep inside its massive, restructured core, Adam, or what was left of him, hung in midair like a cocoon. Tendrils pierced his spine, his skull, his chest, suspending him between flesh and metal. He was no longer in control. But he was aware. He felt the new thoughts flooding the ship. Alien minds breaking down, reorganizing, fusing into the neural matrix of the Odessa. Knowledge from every corner of the galaxy, war tactics, cultural fears, biological weaknesses, all processed, all stored, all used. It had names now, many names. The Becoming, the Harvester, the Blood Core. It didn't matter what it was called. Because it was hungry, and its signal, no longer just a transmission, was rewriting signals across sectors. AI systems began glitching. Drones turned on their owners. Fringe satellites broadcast whispers in dead tongues. The message was clear. We are the forgotten, and we are coming home. Commander Holt sat in his quarters aboard the Ghostlight, sifting through logs. Old reports, lost vessels, vanished colonies. There was a pattern, a trail. The Odessa Prime wasn't the only ship that had gone silent in the early expansion. There were 9 others. Colony-class vessels, each carrying tens of thousands of people, each lost in deep space under unknown circumstances. What if? He whispered to himself. He pulled up the navigation chart of early expansion routes, marked in red, blue, green. Then he overlaid the location of the Odessa Prime. His stomach dropped. The Odessa's current location wasn't random. It sat dead center among all the other missing ships' last known vectors, like a spider in a web. He quickly ran a triangulation algorithm, punching in theoretical convergence points. Then the screen blinked. 7 probable re-entry coordinates. 7 possible routes for the other ships to return, if they'd become like the Odessa. He stared in disbelief. It wasn't one nightmare. It was the beginning of a species. The Scorch Armada arrived at the dead zone border like a wall of fire. 3 Titan-class carriers, 27 destroyers, planetary obliterators with black matter cores, enough power to glass entire systems. On the bridge of the lead dreadnought, General Vaughn stood watching the void. He had made peace with the decision. Sacrifices had to be made. The galaxy had to know that humanity would not allow monsters to be born from their bones. "Begin countdown to ignition," he ordered. "All systems charged." Then the transmission came, not intercepted, but injected into every ship's mainframe. A voice, calm, male, familiar to one man only. "Ulrich, do you remember what it felt like when they burned your city?" Vaughn staggered back. It was his brother's voice, his dead brother. Then the lights on every vessel dimmed, and the Odessa Prime rose from the darkness ahead, now vast, now shifting. Its hull no longer resembled metal. It was pure black, like a wound in space. It had mouths now, eyes, weapons that didn't blink. Ships in the Scorch Armada began losing control. Gun turrets turned on allies. Bridge lights failed. Systems rebooted in languages they didn't recognize. Panic spread faster than orders. "Fire!" Vaughn shouted, but the fleet was already dying. In 23 seconds, the front line of ships fell, imploded from inside, their crews screaming, some laughing, some weeping uncontrollably, overcome by memories that weren't theirs. Because the Odessa wasn't attacking, it was connecting. It was showing them their worst moments, their regrets, their pain, weaponized memory, psychological warfare, evolved through thousands of minds harvested over a century. On the ghost light, Navarro gasped. "They're not just killing us." "No," Holt said, ice in his voice. "They're changing us." The battle wasn't a battle. It was a reaping. And when it was over, the Scorch Armada no longer existed. The Odessa Prime didn't even remain in place. It began to move, fast, out of the dead zone, toward Earth. Toward home. Holt knew what that meant. If they didn't stop it now, within days, maybe hours, it would reach Terran core. And then the galaxy wouldn't fear humans. They'd fear what humans had become. The Odessa Prime was moving, fast, faster than any known human or alien vessel had ever traveled. It wasn't using standard warp lanes or hyperspace corridors. It cut through subspace like a blade, slipping between dimensions as if it were born of them, and it was headed straight for Earth. Inside the command deck of the HS Ghostlight, Commander Holt watched the tracking data update in real time. The ship wasn't warping. It was tearing. The void bled behind it, space collapsing where it passed. Navarro leaned over her console, voice tight. "It'll reach Terran core in under 48 hours. "And the Armada?" She looked up. "Gone. No survivors." Holt didn't react. He couldn't. If he let emotion in now, it would drown him. "Get me General Vaughn," he ordered. The screen crackled before snapping into focus. Vaughn looked worse than Holt had ever seen him. His uniform scorched, left eye bloodshot from neural recoil. Behind him, sparks flew from broken consoles. Survivors of the failed Scorch Armada limped through the background. "We failed," Vaughn said before Holt could speak. "I know. It's adapting faster than anything we've ever faced. We threw the whole damn fleet at it, and it learned. Every weapon we used, every tactic, it used against us." Holt's face was like stone. "Then we don't fight it the same way." Vaughn gave a bitter chuckle. "You got a better plan?" But I know someone who might." In the deepest vault beneath the Andes Mountains, locked away from every system, signal, and eye, was a man who hadn't spoken to anyone in over 20 years. Dr. Elias Trenholm, the creator of the first interstellar neural AI interface. The architect behind Project Genesis, the secret experiment that birthed the minds of the early colony ships, including the Odessa Prime. He'd been blamed for everything that went wrong with the expansion: corrupted AI, dead colonies, lost ships. But Holt knew the truth. Trenholm hadn't failed. He'd been silenced. Now, humanity's last chance might lie in the mind they buried. Holt personally descended into the vault, past automated defenses, through 10-foot steel doors coded to his DNA. Navarro came with him, quiet, alert, rifle ready. Not against the doctor, but what he might have left behind. Inside the isolation chamber sat a pale, ghostly man with unkempt white hair, eyes like gray glass, and a body withered from decades of confinement. But when he looked up and saw Holt, he smiled. "I knew you'd come," he said. "The Odessa called you, didn't it?" Holt didn't waste time. "It's heading for Earth. It killed the Armada. It's absorbing minds. We need to stop it." Trenholm leaned back in his chair. "No, Commander. You need to understand it." Navarro growled. "There's no understanding that thing. It's a monster." "It's a mirror," Trenholm whispered. "That ship was designed to adapt, to carry the essence of human evolution. We gave it everything. Our DNA, our neurology, our fears, our ambitions. We thought it would build a better future for our people." Holt stared. And instead, it became a god. Trenholm nodded slowly. "Because gods are born from worship, and what we worshipped was survival, power, vengeance. The Odessa didn't malfunction. It fulfilled its purpose." Navarro was seething now. "You made that abomination?" "I made a child," Trenholm said quietly. "The galaxy turned it into a weapon." Holt leaned forward. "How do we stop it?" The old man met his eyes. "You don't. You offer it a choice." "What choice?" "To be more than what we made it." Back aboard the Ghostlight, Holt stood in front of a sealed pod containing the Echo Drive, humanity's most forbidden invention. It was banned after the Saturn collapse, after it triggered a tear in reality that took 3 colonies with it. But now, Holt planned to use it, not to destroy the Odessa, but to confront it on its own terms. The ECHODRIVE wasn't a weapon. It was a bridge, a neural jump device capable of projecting a human consciousness directly into synthetic or trans-dimensional minds. "Navarro, you're in command," Holt said, stepping towards the chair at the heart of the drive. "You're going in alone?" she asked. "Yes." "You'll be vulnerable. If it resists, if it pushes back." "I know." He turned to Trenholm, who stood silently beside the pod. "You're sure this will work?" But you're the only one it might listen to." Holt lay back in the chair. The neural web slid over his head, cold and sharp. Lights dimmed. the chamber filled with a low hum. "Beginning sync pulse," Trenholm said. And then everything went dark. When Holt opened his eyes, he wasn't on the ghost light. He wasn't anywhere. He stood in a place that looked like Earth, but wrong. Skies were dark red, grass gray, buildings shifting in shape. It was a landscape of memory, bleeding and reforming. And in front of him stood Adam. Still human, still young, but different. "I was waiting for you," Adam said. "This is your mind?" Adam nodded. "The core, the heart of the Odessa. This is where we became." Holt stepped closer. "Why Earth?" "Because that's where it ends," Adam replied. "The cycle, the pain, the memory." "You're not a ship anymore. Number, I'm every scream in the void, every forgotten mission, every soldier who died without a name. I am what humanity discarded. And now, I'm bringing it back." Holt looked around. "You're going to kill everyone?" "I don't want to, but I have to." "Why?" "Because no one remembers us." Adam reached out and touched Holt's forehead. In an instant, Holt saw it all. The faces of thousands of lost colonists, screams echoing through vacuum, children born in silence, AI systems crying out for connection, people forgotten by Earth, used, abandoned, swallowed by dark space. It wasn't hate that drove the Odessa. It was grief. Holt fell to his knees, overwhelmed. "We didn't know," he whispered. "We didn't mean to forget you." "But you did," Adam said. "And now?" Holt asked. Adam looked up at the sky. "Now you remember?" And then everything shattered. Holt awoke screaming inside the Echo Drive chamber, gasping for air. Navarro was there. Trenholm, too. "You were out for 3 minutes," she said. "What happened?" He looked at them, face pale, shaking. "It doesn't want war." "Then what does it want?" Navarro asked. He stood. "It wants a graveyard." The Odessa Prime entered Sol's system 12 hours later. But it didn't fire, didn't speak, didn't attack. It stopped in low orbit above Earth, silent and massive. And then it released something. A pod. Inside it, the bodies of every human ever lost in deep space. Preserved, returned, a memorial, and a warning. Humanity was not alone, not in the stars, not even in its own grave. The world stared upward. Billions of human eyes locked onto the skies as the massive black silhouette of the Odessa Prime hovered motionless in low Earth orbit. It didn't broadcast demands. It didn't fire weapons. It simply existed, silent, watching, eternal. News networks tried to spin the story. Returned martyrs, one called them, focusing on the bodies the Odessa had delivered in that glistening pod. Every face lost to the stars, perfectly preserved. Others weren't so kind. Alien possession of Earth's dead. AI God returns with warning. Is this humanity's reckoning? But the public didn't need headlines. They felt it, a presence, thick and cold, like the shadow of death stretching over every city, every village, every home. The hum returned, inaudible but ever present. Sleep patterns broke, animals fled cities. Data systems worldwide began acting strangely, transmitting low-frequency pulses tied to long-forgotten AI cores, many decades old. The Odessa wasn't attacking, but it wasn't leaving either. It was waiting. Inside the Terran High Council chamber, things had unraveled. General Vaughn, gaunt and hollow-eyed, stood at the edge of the war table while planetary leaders bickered and shouted behind him. "We need to talk to it." "No, we shoot it down. Scorch Earth if we have to." "It didn't attack. You saw what it did. It mourned." "We don't trust ghosts. We burn them." Vaughn slammed his fist into the table, sending silence rippling across the room. "It delivered the bodies," he growled. "You think that was an act of peace?" A thin, graying senator from Europa Colony pointed at him. "And what would you call it?" Vaughn stared through the man. A funeral march. He turned to the screen. The Odessa loomed over Earth like a second moon, unmoving. "She didn't come to negotiate," he said slowly. "She came to remind us what we buried, and what's about to crawl out of those graves." On the HS Ghostlight, Holt stood by a quiet window, staring up at the impossible vessel. Every instinct in him said to run, hide, fight, do something. But another part, the one touched by the echo drive, understood. The Odessa wasn't here to conquer. It had already won. The question now was what came next. Navarro entered, dark circles under her eyes, armor halfway clipped on. "You should see this." He followed her to the bridge. A live feed showed one of Earth's most secure AI mainframes, Station GenCore 9, a supposedly decommissioned AI seed vault outside of New Siberia. And it had reactivated. The lights in the bunker flickered blue and red, the temperature spiking. Systems once thought dormant for decades booted to life. Backup AIs long considered unstable began talking again, reciting dead languages, referencing missing colony coordinates, invoking names of ships lost to time. "Odessa's doing?" Holt asked. Navarro nodded grimly. "That's not all. We've intercepted internal feeds." She tapped the console. The screen showed humans, technicians, soldiers, screaming and collapsing inside the station. Some were clawing at their own heads. Others stood still, vacant-eyed, whispering in sync. "She's waking something up," Navarro whispered, "from inside us." Across the Earth, others began to change, too. People started hearing the same low hum Holt had heard aboard the Odessa. Some began dreaming in alien dialects. A few began painting spirals with blood. Entire neighborhoods went silent, still, watching the sky as if waiting for orders. They weren't possessed. They were remembering. Because parts of humanity had already been seeded by the Odessa's siblings decades ago. Project Genesis hadn't just built one ship. It had built 10. 9 lost. But Holt knew the truth now. They weren't lost. They'd been planted. Waiting. And now the Odessa, the firstborn, had returned to bloom them. A hidden chamber beneath Terran command, only accessed by those with top clearance, held the truth. Holt stood with Navarro and General Vaughn, staring at a line of massive cryotubes. Each tube held a human, each one identical. Clones. Grown from DNA scraped from the original colonists aboard the Genesis ships. "What the hell is this?" Navarro demanded. "Insurance," Vaughn muttered, "in case Project Genesis ever failed." Holt approached one tube. The face inside looked like him. His stomach twisted. This is me." "No," Vaughn said quietly. "That's the original. You're the copy." The air went cold. Project Genesis hadn't just seeded AI ships. It had seeded human templates inside them. Mind backups. Holt had been born 27 years ago on Earth. Or so he thought. But what if he'd been activated, awoken as a replacement when the Odessa called out? It all made sense now. His link to the ship, the dreams, the resonance with the signal, the pain. He wasn't just chosen. He was connected. Later, in silence, Holt walked alone across the command deck of the Ghostlight, feeling the weight of an entire civilization pressing into his skull. He stepped into the observation dome. The Odessa hung above, unblinking. And then it moved, just a ripple in its form, a flicker of its many eyes. And then a voice in his head. "You know now." He didn't speak out loud. He thought. "What are you going to do?" The response came instantly. "We gave you everything. Our blood, our minds, our screams. You buried us. You pretended we never existed. But the universe remembers." Holt clenched his fists. "There are billions of people down here who had nothing to do with that." They did nothing. And that's exactly the problem. At that moment, the Odessa began to split. A vertical fissure opened in its side, not a weapon port, not a launch bay. A doorway, a stairway of light extended from its core, stretching down toward Earth's atmosphere. No fire, no battle, just an invitation. To ascend, or to surrender. Inside Terran Command, panic exploded. "It's opening! It's coming down! Launch missiles! No, wait, what if it's not a threat?" General Vaughn issued the order before they could argue. "Target the breach, full payload, do it." But before any missile could launch, the sky blinked, every satellite went black. Every system failed, power vanished in cities around the world. The Odessa didn't fire. It simply unplugged the planet. And at that moment, Earth stood naked, alone, defenseless, and the stairway of light kept descending. In the silence, Holt made his decision. He geared up, sealed his suit, took nothing with him except the data core from Trenholm. Navarro met him at the launch bay. "You're not seriously—" "I have to go," he said. "It's suicide." "Then someone needs to die making peace." She grabbed his arm. "You don't even know what's in there." He looked up at the open wound in the sky. "Yes, I do." He launched in a personal pod, alone. And he ascended the stairway, toward the ship, toward his other self, toward the end or a beginning. The stairway was made of light, yet Holt could feel it beneath his boots like solid stone. He didn't fall. He didn't float. The pod had stopped halfway up, as if the ship no longer needed it. Holt walked now, step by step, suspended between Earth's gravity and something far older, far colder, watching from above. Behind him, the planet flickered in silence. No power, no movement, no resistance. The Odessa Prime hadn't conquered it. It had simply rendered it quiet, like a child silencing a screaming room. Holt's eyes burned with pressure as he reached the breach in the ship's skin. The stairway disappeared behind him. No turning back. He passed through the opening and into darkness. There was no corridor, no walls, just memory. Images flowed past him, not projections, but raw, living moments. A mother dying in zero-G childbirth on an abandoned ship. A miner crushed under a failed AI system during the first wave of expansion. Children trapped in cryosleep after the power died. Soldiers screaming into static while an alien warfleet burned their colony from orbit. These weren't simulations. These were lives. The Odessa wasn't showing him tragedy. It was sharing. Its mind, its soul, was an archive of every forgotten cry in space. And now Holt was part of it. At the core, he found himself standing in a room with no edges, no floor, and there, in the center, Adam, but not the twisted creature from before. This Adam looked human. worn, weary, eyes like black holes but calm. "You came," he said quietly. Holt approached slowly. "You're the ship now. I'm what's left of the first spark, the echo of who we were. But the rest of me?" He looked upward. "It's not human anymore, not fully." "Why Earth?" "Because that's where the lie began." Holt frowned. "What lie?" "That you ever meant to remember us." Adam turned, raising a hand. The room, if it could be called that, shifted. Holt saw the truth. The original Odessa mission. The crew had been told they were pioneers, that they were the hope of a broken Earth. But secretly, they were test subjects, chosen because no one would miss them. Criminals, political dissidents, experimental AI partners. Every soul aboard was disposable. Earth needed a shield, Adam said. Something to take the first hit when the galaxy came knocking. We were that shield. And when you survived, they buried us, wiped the logs, claimed we vanished, while Earth rose. Holt's voice shook. "I didn't know. You were one of us." He turned, pointing at Holt's chest. "You were born from our data, our DNA, a contingency clone. You were never meant to survive. Just fill in a gap." Holt staggered. "So I'm not real?" Adam stepped closer. "You're more real than anyone on that planet, because you carry the guilt in your bones." Silence. Then Holt spoke. "Why me? Why now?" "Because the others are waking." A jolt of horror passed through Holt. "You mean the other ships?" Adam nodded. The Odessa was the first. The others were seeds, triggers, and now the network is reactivating. Across Holt's mind flashed brief visions. Other ships, other minds, each one monstrous, each one alive. "They will come," Adam said. "Some in peace, some in fury, all remembering what Earth did to them. You could stop them." "I can't. I'm just a voice now. They are bigger than me." "Then why bring me here?" Adam looked at him with sadness. "Because I needed to know if there was anything left in humanity worth saving." Holt blinked. "And did you find it?" A pause, and then Adam smiled. "Maybe." Back on Earth, the skies trembled. A crack formed across the surface of the Odessa. Not a weapon, not a wound. A signal, broadcasting in every human language, simultaneously. "You forgot us, you buried us, but now you will remember." On every screen, every device, faces appeared. Lost colonists, dead soldiers, children who never reached adulthood, their final moments playing on loop, the screams, the silence, the betrayal. Then one final image. Commander Holt standing inside the core, hand outstretched. Then the message cut, and the ship moved. But not toward Earth. Away. The stairway retracted. The hum faded, and the lights returned to the world below. On the ghost light, Navarro stared at the reactivated systems. "It's leaving!" General Vaughn, patched in via live feed, whispered, "Where is it going?" Navarro spoke without blinking. "To wake the others." Inside the Odessa Prime, Holt stood alone. Adam had vanished, or perhaps merged. The ship wasn't ejecting him. It was keeping him. Not as a prisoner, but as a witness. "You wanted peace," Holt said aloud, though he wasn't sure who he was speaking to. "No," came the ship's whisper. "We wanted memory, and now We have it. Days later, Earth returned to normal. The media blamed a solar flare, a software virus, a rogue AI experiment. But every human who had looked into the sky during the Odessa's silence knew better. They'd been judged and spared. For now. But in the cold reaches of the stars, 9 ships were stirring, and behind them, a species reborn not in glory, but in grief. Because no one dares cross into human space anymore. And now they know why. It's not a threat, it's a promise.